Okay, so in this tutorial, I'm going to show you guys it's more of kind of a graphic designer sort of thing, but how you use text effectively in Photoshop when you're doing a layout. And so we're going to use this image here as an example of we're going to say that this is a book cover and we need to add text to it, or you've been asked. They've given you a title of the book, the author of the book, all that kind of good stuff. And so they want you to use Photoshop to lay out the title of the book and the author. And so, as a layout artist and as a graphic designer, you really got to be able to kind of wrap your head around the concept of it's more than just clicking on the type tool and typing. It's more than just clicking on the color picker and picking a color at random. That in all forms of communication, um, aside from like movies and things like that, we communicate, well, even technically movies, we communicate through words. So even silent films knew that they had to put a placard up that told you what the actors and actresses were saying to communicate to the audience what was going on. That visuals alone aren't enough, and most students that come into this the graphic design program here, they are singularly focused on image, photos, Photoshop, anything beautiful art that they can create, and that's not what a graphic designer does. We communicate through message. Images and visuals and graphics complement that, but it's always going to come back down to the message. And so when you're asked, like I'm going to show you guys in a couple seconds, anyone can just type, and click on the type tool and type whatever the message is. But if you're trying to be a graphic designer, you can't. If anyone can do it, they don't need you because they could do it. What they need you for is that you understand principles and theories of how to communicate a message effectively to audience, how to use tools to their fullest to get your message across. The creativity part of it, that's where your creativity comes in. And so we'll show you an example. So this is an example of kind of what I'm talking about in terms of anyone can type and anyone can select a color. And this is not an effective design. The layout could work, but the color here, particularly when we're mixing these colors, we use color in text layout when we have the opportunity to use color. There's a thing that we call emphasis in terms of some words are more important than others. So like in novels or biographies or whatever, textbooks or whatever, if the author is famous enough, they may put more emphasis on their last name or their name in general. Think Stephen King. You go to a bookstore and you look at Stephen King, or even search online, and you can see his book covers, and you'll see because of his name, they emphasize pretty much like what we have right here. His last name is really, really big because people know that's who they're looking for. That's what sells this book, and that's what we're trying to do here. You have to also approach it in terms of, it makes sense to you, but that's not who it's got to make sense to. It's got to make sense to your mother, your grandmother. What if they were being asked to buy this book as a present? They're shopping for it by the title, not the photo. They don't know who this person is. They just know the title that you've told them, and who it's by, or the author. That's what they're searching for, and so that's what they're going to be looking in terms of, is this the right book, because you communicated the message. Again, we use colors to draw emphasis to something, and so high contrast becomes important. And both of these colors, warm colors, high contrast on the background here, but they're also, particularly the red. The yellow, not so much, but the red definitely is just this kind of cartoony sort of color. In Photoshop, if we go to our swatches here real quick, and actually we'll go to our CMYK swatches. If I picked just something straight from these swatches, again, everyone has access to that. So what do they need you for? They need someone that knows that beyond that, and knows not just how to use the color picker, but what a contrasting color is, knowing the importance of type, that they have to get it to jump out. In this particular example, it's getting busy with all the different colors on them, and the words that were emphasized in all of this is fighting for attention. Does the eye read Brad first, or does the eye read Bird first? So that's why we use size to help, but we may also unify the color palettes to help organize the message, because that's what we do. So if I select on here and hit my color overlay, I'm going to pick my color, and I'm going to just make it the same yellow. And we'll do the same thing with his name. I'm going to hit the color overlay, and instead of red, that kind of cartoony red, I'm going to hit that yellow. And see how instantly this organizes it a little bit more. It's, you try to keep, now it's organized through size. It's got a high contrast color. We've put a stroke around it to create some separation from the busy background. So that's why it works back here with all this photo behind it, is that stroke has helped separating it from the background. And so now it's organized a little bit better with color, high contrasting color, and jumps off the screen a little bit more. And it's not too busy with all these different colors that are fighting for my eye. Now, creativity. Sure, that's an effective solution and that could work. Where your creativity comes in is, again, understanding these principles and theories that I'm talking about in terms of emphasis of words, separating words from background, a color that's not it's a good contrasting color from the background, but also not just a standard palette color. We can push that solution. We need the words to jump off the page of our layouts. It's got to jump off of the page, and we know the rules. These jump off the page, but this is stronger. Now we're really emphasizing the title. We have our subhead underneath it. It's still got separation from the image, but it's also not crowding him as well. Part of this is also because of how this image was photographed. More than likely, I'm willing to guess that this image was photographed to be part of an article or something like that. So they built in, we'll hide this for a second. The photographer was far enough back to build in some negative space here on the desk, negative space up here on the top, so that a designer could lay something out like this, and it would still be effective, but not cover him up. But it's covering up information that the audience really doesn't care, or isn't really going to influence their decision here. The message is what's going to do that, and we have a very simple, very effective message that we're not busying the message up with effects. The only effects that we have going on here is a stroke just to separate it, but let's select his name here. And, I'm not doing some sort of beveling and embossing. That just starts busying the design up a little bit. And it makes it look like it's obviously photoshopped at that point. If I'm doing, I don't know, gradient overlays. We'll set this to normal so you can see it. That's you not thinking of how text works, the importance of the layout of the message, just you trying to make it pretty and artistic. And that's not what a graphic designer does all the time. It makes it look overly photoshopped, and that's, again, becomes just kind of glaringly obvious that you use Photoshop, and that you're relying on the tricks in Photoshop to solve your problems, rather than thinking and understanding principles and theories of why those principles and theories work. That's what's actually going to solve the problem a lot stronger. So that's pretty much it in terms of just very basic layouts when you're dealing with messages and things like that. But this is how you use layouts, text, and layer effects effectively in Photoshop.